Here's the cold hard truth. Agencies that don't automate will get outpaced and out of business by the ones that do. If you're still relying on manual follow-ups, endless task juggling, and crossing your fingers that clients stay happy, you're leaving profit and sanity on the table. In today's video, I'm breaking down the 3 automation playbooks that high-profit agencies use to scale smarter, faster, and leaner. So let's get you out of survival mode and into unstoppable growth. If you're ready to scale lean and win big, make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and let's dive in. Let's start with the money leak that no one likes to talk about. The leads that just quietly die after you send the proposal. Not because the client wasn't interested, but because life happened. Their inbox exploded, your follow-up slipped through the cracks, and before you know it, the opportunity is cold. High-profit agencies fix this by letting the automations do the chasing for them. Let me show you exactly what I mean by that. So here you have an automation within our favorite CRM, HoneyBook. Now you can do this in many different CRMs. We have other videos on HoneyBook if you've never heard of it before or you're currently hunting for a CRM. So with this, you're going to see that when the project stage changes to proposal sent, now, this is a newer trigger with HoneyBook's Automations 2.0, which is killer. This is going to automatically trigger this automation. So as soon as you send a proposal, now this one is specific for our HoneyBook setup. And you can do this either, maybe your proposal follow-up process is the same no matter what service you have, or maybe it's specific per project type, and then you can customize this per project. But just to give you this visual idea, here you're going to see when the project stage changes to proposal sent, then one day later, it's going to check if the first payment has been paid. Now again, you can get granular with this and either have it as any payment made, or it could be a specific file, like the HoneyBook proposal file. If it was paid, it's going to end this automation, and it's actually going to kick off the welcome automation, which we'll get to later on in this video. But if they haven't, then it's going to prompt you to send proposal follow-up number 1. And so here you can see, just checking in to see if you had a chance to review the proposal. Let me know if you have any questions. It could be short, sweet, to the point. You can include case studies. Really, you can make this your own. Now, you'll see that you can also decide to have this require approval or not. I typically recommend having lead follow-ups depending on what level your agency's at, depending on how many leads you get. It's definitely, whether I would recommend you turn this on or off, but having it on allows you to see if that lead has responded, see if for any reason they said, I'm not interested, or I need a couple more days. But this is going to allow you just to approve this with a click of a button. If you don't want to have to go through the approval and you want it as automated as possible, then the new conditional logic within HoneyBook Automations 2.0 is killer, because it can literally be like, hey, have they made their payment? Yes or no. Then it waits another 3 days. Have they made their first payment? If not, let's send follow-up number 2. So here we have checking in again. Have you made a decision about working with us? Have you gone another direction? Then it'll wait 7 days, send the last follow-up. Hey, wanted to check in one last time. Have you had a chance to review the proposal? Here you can also, come back to that original pain point. So you can also have these as being able to customize them. If you're using HoneyBook, instead of send email, you would change this to create email draft. That way you can actually come in and customize, put some personal details. But if not, then you can have it check 7 days later, and then move the pipeline stage to 3-month follow-up. Maybe you want to archive them, but basically you're going to go into the next stage. What does your proposal follow-up process look like? Do you just stop after 3-4 follow-ups, or do you continue to nurture them, send them resources, assets, etc.? So the goal of this is not to nag your prospects, it's to nurture them. And because it's all automated, if you turn off require approval, you don't even have to remember to hit send. Agencies that use systems like these see their close rates jump by up to 30%, all without adding a single extra sales call to their calendar. And that is the power of letting the tech do the follow-ups and nurturing for you while you get to stay focused on qualified leads and bringing in more business. Okay, so that wraps up playbook number 1, which is the proposal close sequence. Now we move on to playbook number 2. Now that your follow-ups are handled automatically, let's shift gears to internal operations. So playbook number 2, we want to shift gears to the team task prioritization system. So now I'm going to jump into a separate tool, our favorite project management tool, ClickUp, and we'll go from there. Tell me if this sounds familiar. Your team is working overtime. Everyone is constantly in meetings, but somehow the real work, the work that drives revenue, isn't moving forward. This is what we call the busy but broke cycle. Just keeping it real. So what's the cure? A team task prioritization system that makes it impossible for your team to focus on the wrong things. So let me show you a couple examples of how you can build this right inside ClickUp. So the goal here is that every task gets classified using a simple but powerful framework. Now I'm going to go through this template that we've created for the Eisenhower matrix. We don't have this as a template yet in our shop. I know, shocking. But if you guys are interested, we can definitely add it to our shop. It's a pretty simple template, so you can definitely build this from scratch if you would like as well. So I'm going to show you how you can build something out like a task prioritization system like the Eisenhower matrix in ClickUp. And then I'm also just going to show you how to really just manage, bare bones priorities and create dashboards and views for your teams to be able to look at a list and start with what's most urgent. So here we are in the Eisenhower matrix template. So say you are either providing this to your team so they can prioritize their tasks, or you're prioritizing the tasks for them. Maybe you're prioritizing the tasks for yourself and you have a bunch of different things that you have to get done, and you're struggling to know what to work on in what order. So the whole goal of the Eisenhower matrix, let me actually pull up an image here for you so you get the idea of the concept. Okay, so basically you can see on this website that they have a video here. You can watch this. It's literally less than 3 minutes long and it explains it. But basically you categorize tasks in for 2 main categories. So urgency and importance. Is this task urgent or less urgent? And is it important or less important? Then you can see the matrix. If it is urgent and important, you're going to do that first. If it is important, but not so much urgent, then you're going to schedule this. If it's urgent, but less important, you're going to delegate it. And if it's neither urgent or important, then you're just going to delete it and you're not going to do it. So let's take a look at how this translates into ClickUp. Okay, so here, let's say you have things to categorize, like get out and send that proposal. Then you have check inbox, and then you have any other tasks, right? You can add them under the categorize status. Now, note, I don't have this automated, but you can absolutely add automations so that it, creates and brings it into the status based on the urgency and importance. So basically what your goal is you're going to say, okay, what is the urgency for sending out this proposal? It's pretty urgent because you want to make sure you're getting proposals in your prospect hands as quickly as possible. And how important is this? It's pretty important. You want to make sure that you're, nurturing those leads, bringing in that business. So what we want to create and what we can create are automations that once you say, okay, this is urgent and important, then it will change the status to do first, or you can just do this manually. The goal is that you have the prioritization system, right? So you don't have to do so much thinking, looking at a list of 20 things and being like, okay, I don't know what to do in what order. Then check inbox, urgency, importance, etc. So once you decide the urgency and importance, then you can decide, okay, does this go into do first? Do I need to schedule this, delegate it, or am I not going to do it? So here then you can just crank through the do first list, get those things out, and then mark them as completed. If you need to schedule things, maybe you're going to put, okay, who's going to do this and when are they going to get it done? And then if you're going to delegate it, I guess the scheduling would be you're going to do it. And then when are you going to get it done? And then delegating would be who's going to do it and when are they going to get it done. Now you can also use this just to prioritize the system. And then you can go ahead and move it to the actual list it belongs in ClickUp. Again, this is just showing you how you can take a concept of having a prioritization system and build it out in your project management tool. So that's the Eisenhower matrix example. Now what I want to show you is the native priority field within ClickUp. So what ClickUp has natively is this priority field where you can mark something as urgent, high, or normal, right? So maybe in these automations, you also want to say, okay, if something is urgent and important, put it in due first and mark the priority as urgent. Assign it to me with a due date of today. Let's actually just create that one automation so you can see how to build this, and then we can move on to the next examples. So if I go into Automate, and I go to Manage Automations, I'm going to click on Add Automation, and I'm going to say Do First. When the custom field changes, and I'm going to say Importance, because I'm always going to start with the urgency. So I'm going to say Importance is important, and the condition that the custom field urgency is urgent. Then I want to go ahead and I want to change the status to Do First. I want to add assignee as me. I want to change the due date to today on the trigger date. And I want to set the priority as urgent. So I know that was kind of fast. Feel free to rewind or put that in slow-mo if you're following step by step. And then click on Create. So now you'll see if I have check inbox, and I always start with urgency, I'm going to do urgent. I'm going to mark it as important. This is then going to move and do all of those automations. And there you have it. You can see that it assigned me with a due date of today and put the priority as urgent. So if you are using these priority flags, which I highly recommend, you can also find them on the inside of the tasks inside ClickUp. So you'll see you can set the priority here as well. Then what you want to do is just make sure that you and your team are actually utilizing these priority fields. So we can set priorities all day long and we can say this is urgent, this is high, but we can also come into ClickUp and start with the things that feel good and are easy, right? So we want to make sure we're keeping ourselves accountable. So I created 2 different versions of being able to group your tasks by priority. One being an everything view. So if you come to everything, let's go ahead and create this view from scratch. So I'm going to click on Add View. On the everything level, when you add a view, it feels very overwhelming, right? Because you're like, why would I ever need to see all of the things in one place, like every single task in my ClickUp? But this is where we're going to use filters to really make this view shine. So I'm going to rename this and I'm going to call it Priority. You can also call it like Today's Priorities. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to click Filter that the assignee is me, that the due date is today. And then I'm going to go ahead where you have Group. I'm going to do Priority. So now I have a list of everything that's due to me grouped by priority, so I can go ahead and just come into here and start with the most urgent things. Once I go ahead and mark those as completed, then they're going to wipe away from my list. So the great news about this is once you save this, you can also enable auto save. Now this is set, right? So what you want to do is right click on the priority and click on Add to Favorites, Add, and now it's going to be on your favorites bar. If you don't see it on your favorites bar, that's because your favorites bar might not be pinned, and it'll be as a drop down here above spaces. So you can either pin it or keep it as a drop down, whatever you prefer. And so that way you're always going to reference the most used things, right? So if you have this view set up for yourself, for your team members, You're going to have no choice but to come in here and be like, okay, you can even minimize the other categories to not get distracted and be like, I'm going to focus on the most urgent things first, get those out of the way, and then keep moving in order of priority. So you could either do this on the everything view, or you can create a dashboard. So if I come into dashboards, you'll see the daily priorities dashboard. All I did here, it's the same exact concept, is I added a task list card. In that task list card, I then pulled all locations. I then called this today's tasks. I filtered that the due date is today and the assignee is me. And then I grouped it again by priority. So it's the same exact concept. It's just, would you rather have it in a dashboard or an everything view? Really doesn't matter as long as you make sure to favorite this so you don't have to go searching for it every day. Save yourself some clicks and make sure that you're setting yourself and your team up for success. Now, this isn't just a theory. When agencies implement this system, they don't just reduce burnout, they start hitting deadlines, improving delivery time, and watching client satisfaction scores climb. Because when everyone knows exactly what matters most, projects don't just get done, they get done profitably. So that covers team focused. So next and last, but certainly not least, let's level up your client experience. So let's move on to playbook number 3, which is the client experience pipeline. The goal here is to automate high touch without micromanaging. So we're back in HoneyBook. We're going to go through another automation, starting with the client experience when a client signs and we want to kick off their project. And just want to start with this note, is that clients don't just buy services. They buy the experience of working with your agency. And if an experience feels chaotic or inconsistent, they start wondering if the results will be the same. And here's the truth. When someone is hesitating about purchasing your service, there may be many different objections, whether it's price, whether they've never invested, in something like this before, whether they're not sold on the product and if they really need it. But we have heard so many times before that, I've just been burned in the past by a different agency, different consultant who promised one thing and delivered another, or frankly didn't really deliver much at all. So that's exactly why high profit agencies invest in their client journey. It doesn't just start from the moment they sign. It starts from the moment they decide to inquire about working with your company. The goal is from the moment a client inquires to the contract is signed and handing off from sales to fulfillment, we want every touch point to feel thoughtful and professional, even if no one on your team personally sends that update. So I want to show you exactly what this looks like in practice. I want to show you a few core examples, both in our CRM HoneyBook and our project management tool ClickUp. So let's start with when the first payment is made. What's going to happen is you can see here an onboarding email is automatically sent with the next steps. So here you can see this is the welcome email for one of our services. So when the first payment is paid on this specific proposal, it's going to send the welcome email right away. So here it's going to say, welcome to the ClickUp Agency Accelerator Program. To get started, here's what we need next. Please fill out the onboarding form. After that's done, you'll schedule your call. Here's what we're going to be working on. We're here to guide you every step of the way, etc. Now, because the client gets this automatically, they know that I'm not sending this personally. But to them, they're like, great, now I have the next steps. There's no question mark. Now, there might be instances, and we actually have this instance with another service where we have to do a couple things before we actually send over the onboarding packet. So what we do is send an automated email being like, hey, welcome, we're so excited. In the next 24 hours, our project manager is going to reach out to you and get started with the next steps. So even if you're not able to send, hey, here are the next steps, do X, Y, Z, you at least want to acknowledge and welcome them to your company and give them an expectation of what's coming. Now, it doesn't stop there. If you said you're going to get it to them in 24, 48 hours, you must deliver on that thing. So you also want to make sure you're setting your team up for success. So then let's come back into ClickUp where we start the onboarding process. So from here, you can now have automations, especially with tools like Zapier or Make.com. If you're not familiar with these are other automation and integration tools that can actually connect your softwares together. If there's not like a native integration, we're actually going to have a whole video on Zapier versus Make coming up, so make sure to subscribe to our channel if you have not already. But basically what you could do is say, okay, once a client signs in my CRM, then go ahead, bring them into the client database in onboarding, and let's upload their onboarding checklist. This can then be assigned to the specific team members for the specific days that it has to get done. So maybe that looks like adding, the project manager or your assistant to specific things with a due date of that day and high priority. So it goes on their ClickUp calendar. They know exactly what they have to do, and it creates that seamless sales handoff. We also recently created for a client of ours a sales handoff form so that they're a marketing agency and they have one salesperson and they want to give some notes to the project manager and account manager before they actually begin the onboarding process. So what the sales rep does is they have this form that they fill out with the client information, of course, their contact information, who they are, and then any sales handoff notes that they talked about on the sales call or sales calls. So then the account manager is in the loop. From there, it then creates and sends an automated email that looks like it's personal from the sales rep, CCing the account manager to the client and being like, hey, meet so-and-so, they're awesome, they're your account manager, etc. So there's so much you can do here, of course, but those are just a couple quick examples of beginning the onboarding process, both from your CRM as well as bringing it into action-oriented items in your project management tool. Then there are a couple core pieces that you also want to consider from here. Once you get them onboarded, it doesn't stop there. You now get into delivery and fulfillment. You want to make sure that you are as organized as possible. Things are getting done. You're hitting your deadlines. You're wowing your clients. How do you do that? By making sure everything has a place. So you can see in our client management template, you can either have a template like this or a project management template where you have this process, whether you have this mapped out and you can templatize it each time, or you just have a starting point and then you fill this in depending on the scope. You want to have a place where your team is tracking every single task internally. From here, you can then see what's going on in the project, what's the status, who's doing what are the due dates looking like, are we ahead or behind schedule? And you can decide to either add your client to this, you can even just give them view-only access, or you can make them a beautiful client dashboard within ClickUp that gives them not only a hub to be able to chat with your team, it gives them expectations of communication, important documents and links, and then they can also see their project status. You're giving them that clear visibility from the jump. So we have a whole other video on our channel that goes through this process in depth for client management. I really just want to bring light to this and give you visual examples, but you can always check out that video or we can dive deeper in future videos as always. But the key is your client will know and feel when you have your ish together. It's not just for you internally and the sanity of you and your team, but it's going to create client trust and client retention. It's not only going to keep that client coming back for more, but also having them send referrals your way. Now, aside from just having somewhere like a client dashboard where they can check in, you also want to make sure you're keeping them in the loop, whether that's via email, via Slack, via ClickUp dashboard, however you communicate with them, you want to make sure that you are giving them project updates, right? And keeping the ball rolling. So what's really amazing is you can use ClickUp Brain and ClickUp AI to give you project updates, whether you automatically send these to the client or you just gather the details. So if you come into AI, you can see here, you can ask AI anything. So you can be like, give me a project update on, this project for the last 7 days. And then it's going to spit out an update for what's been done, what's the status of things, etc. So you can try this in your ClickUp. This is just our templated ClickUp. So obviously, this is not going to bring real data, but try it for yourself. It's really amazing. We have more videos coming down the pipeline on ClickUp Brain, ClickUp Agents, AI, all the things. But I just wanted to show you that exists, and it is killer. And lastly, aside from just, onboarding them right, delivering, under promising, over delivering, that's the goal. Once you finish the project, or if you have them on a long-term retainer, then you want to come back to, gathering those testimonials. So having a place not only to gather and store client testimonials, like a ClickUp happiness survey. Here you can see an example of one here, but then also maybe having in a HoneyBook automation or a ClickUp automation that, once the project moves to the support phase or completed, or once a retainer client, it's 6 months after their project kickoff date, you can have an email that goes out either with a happiness survey or a feedback form, or it could just be a straight up email being like, hey, how are things going? Is there anything we can improve on? Do you want to book a call to give us any feedback? We want to make sure you're taken care of. And that is a wrap on the automation playbooks. These 3 workflows, follow-up sequences, task prioritization, and client experience pipelines and workflows, can transform how your agency runs behind the scenes. Remember, even starting with one of these automation playbooks can save you hours upon hours each week. I don't want you to feel overwhelmed after this video. Take it step by step, day by day. Start with building just your lead follow-up process. Once that's done, let's move on to onboarding, client journey, task prioritization, all the things. Maybe you already have some of these in place, but they can be optimized or just completely checked off your list. But if you do feel overwhelmed and you need to get these things up and running and either you don't know how, or you don't have the capacity, we are absolutely happy to help. So you can always feel free to book a call with us in the description below, and we can build these automation playbooks with you. Now let's jump back to the main video. Agencies that win the long game aren't working the hardest. They're the ones working the smartest. These automation playbooks are how you reclaim your time, boost your profit margins, and turn chaos into compounding growth. So if you're ready to stop doing it all manually and start scaling on autopilot, book a call with us today at the link in the description, and let's build your growth machine together. One last thing, if you enjoyed this video, if you found it helpful, please make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to hit that bell icon so you're always in the loop about all the automation and systems tips and tricks. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.